When you master this, something remarkable happens. People just open up. They leave the conversation feeling truly heard, and they never forget you. Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley, and for the first time in my life, I'm teaching everything I have learned. The Art of Conversation, a 4-week masterclass for podcasters, leaders, and professionals who understand that the ability to connect is their greatest competitive advantage. Our founding cohort starts Monday, February the 16th, and only a limited number of seats remain. Enroll right now at TavisTalks.com. That's TavisTalks.com.
Yeah, this is all good.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Maybe LA. Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's February 13th, the 13th day of Black History Month. A month set aside by the late Carter G. Woodson that initially began as a week. And it coincides with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln as well as the birthday of Frederick Douglass. On this day in 1923, the New York Renaissance, the Wrens, the first all-black professional basketball team, was founded by Robert L. Douglas. In 1957, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was organized in New Orleans with Martin Luther King Jr. elected as its first president. In 1970, in finance, Joseph Searles was admitted as the first black member of the New York Stock Exchange. In 1993, on the question of community, Black Love Day was founded by Ayo Handi Kindi to encourage self-love, community, and the healing of racial trauma. In 1965, in civil rights, Malcolm X's home in New York City was bombed, which was his last public appearance before his assassination 1 week later. In 1892, in the arts, the African-American performers, the World's Fair Colored Opera Company, appeared at Carnegie Hall. The significance of Black Love Day on February 13th, founded in 1993, This day serves as a counter celebration to Valentine's Day, focusing on 5 tenets: love for the Creator, self, family, community, and the Black race. It promotes love in action and the use of the greeting Nya Akoma, get a heart, patient. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We continue our celebration of Black History Month all February long, indeed all year long. In this hour on Fat Meat Fridays, here on the J Lunch Club, our very special regular contributor is none other than Diallo Brooks. With over 25 years of experience in social justice and civil rights, Diallo has been a pivotal figure in promoting policies that foster safe, healthy, and thriving communities. He currently serves as the founder and CEO of Civic Vision Strategies, a strategic consulting firm empowering organizations through transformative leadership, development, and community engagement strategies. As the former Senior Equity Fellow at the Schott Foundation for Public Education, Diallo bridged the gap between national policymakers and grassroots education justice organizations to advance progressive racial justice policies. Diallo, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Diallo, it's always a pleasure. I'm particularly grateful that you're here. In addition to this 100th anniversary celebration of Black History Month, it also occurs in the context of the 250th anniversary of American independence, July 4th, 1776. On July 4th, 2026, we will celebrate, commemorate, resurrect, maybe, or even bury the idea that American independence is deeply troubled at this hour. And so a lot of things can happen on July 4th. We've gone through these dates many, many times on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm particularly honored that one of our historians, Diallo Brooks, is with us. Diallo, let me ask you a question about the state of education, the state of the Department of Education in the United States on this, its 250th anniversary.
Oh, wow. That's a difficult question because I think there's been a lot of work to dismantle the Department of Education in the ways that we've known it, dismantle the systems that were in place to protect children across this country, and the resources moved to local municipalities and to states to support a strong education system in this country. And I think it's a devolution process. We're moving backwards. And I think that around education, we're going to have to lean into the state and local governments to really take up the mantle of protecting, but also moving us forward as we look at what education can be and should be in this country.
The U.S. Department of Education was founded, I believe, at the end, maybe even the beginning of the Reagan administration, certainly the end of the Carter administration in 1979. So the idea of developing a single standard of high quality education for all Americans, usually enforced by the federal government in the form of civil rights laws, the Department of Education's capacity not only to give grants and strengthen institutions, but also to hold institutions in the states accountable to laws like civil rights, to laws like desegregation, to laws like the Americans with Disability Act, like the Pre-Child Care Acts that subsequently help young children at their very young ages, including but not limited to vaccines and the general environment that simply surrounds education in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That department is now threatened. If it hasn't been completely eradicated, it's certainly being turned on its head by the Trump administration.
It's definitely been turned on its head. I mean, they've eliminated staff, cut programs, and the way that they do business is very different from traditionally how it's been done. And so you won't see the civil rights enforcements that we've seen under previous administrations and things of that nature. But also there's the strategic role that the department has always played, as well as providing support for teachers, support for states around critical issues that may be emerging or they may be struggling with on the local level, whether it be around teacher diversity, making sure that they have the resources, but also have the strategies to increase teacher diversity and make sure that there are folks in the pipeline for teaching roles, making sure that they have the supports around those things as well. And so, not having a department that is strong is problematic for this country.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Fat Meat Fridays, and our very special guest is Diallo Brooks. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580 in just a moment.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
What's up? What's up? What's up? We got to laugh the pain away.
Hey, KBLA delegation, happy Black History Month. Around here, we celebrate our culture, our community, and our contributions daily. But this year, as we observe the 100th anniversary of Black History Month celebrations, we're excited about our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, honoring comedy greats. On Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum in downtown LA, we're toasting D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Munell, Dion Cole, and Martin Lawrence with a surprise guest appearance. A limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon remain, so now would be a good time to head to KBLA1580.com to secure one for yourself. That's KBLA1580.com. A little laughter goes a long way, especially in times like these. So come, join us for our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. Again, tickets are available right now at KBLA1580.com.
Well, I hang around my boy, and he's been married for 6 years. Videotaping his wedding day, never watched it. Now and every day, he watch it every day, but he watch it in reverse. Because he said he loves seeing himself take that ring back off of that finger. Walking back down that aisle, just waving at her ugly mother down the church, getting back in the limo, back at the bachelor party. Look how happy I was.
KBLA Talk 1580 thanks LA City Council members Curran D. Price Jr. and Heather Hutt for being the presenting sponsors at this year's Black History Month Luncheon. Honoring excellence, resilience, and achievement, we're KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Your booty past the clean test. Salmon weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Only available with TurboTax experts. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. boom, just drop King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
It's Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the J Lunch Club right here with our very special contributor, Diallo Brooks. Diallo, I was reading a really interesting article in the Miami Times titled Democrats Defend the Actual Existence of the Department of Education in a Forum. U.S. Democrats on Wednesday rebuked ongoing efforts from President Donald Trump's administration to dismantle the Department of Education, including moves to shift some of its core functions to other agencies. Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia, who is a regular contributor on our show, who hosted a spotlight forum alongside several colleagues, said over and over and over again the administration has circumvented the law to hamstring the future of public education without the consent of Congress and the American people. Scott, the top Democrat on the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, brought in education advocates and legal voices pushing back against the administration's ongoing attempts to axe the agency. Lawmakers and witnesses expressed particular alarm over the administration's 6 interagency agreements, or IAAs, announced with 4 other departments in November of 2025 that transfer several of its responsibility to those cabinet-level agencies. It seems to me, without the act and the support of Congress, Diallo, that some of the actions that the president, through his Secretary of Education, are taking are illegal, and they're certainly outside of the scope of the Constitution if Congress itself has not authorized these IAAs shifting core education functions to other agencies.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are definitely, whether they are illegal or not, I'm not a lawyer, but I will tell you that they're definitely borderline. Well, they're more than borderline. They're actually very problematic as far as how the department actually functions and making sure that those services that the department once housed are actually executed in the way that is beneficial to our young people across the country. The piece that is troubling is that we also have a Congress that is actually in line with this president in the dismantling. I mean, the Republican Congress that exists or that has the majority in both houses, where that's typically where your resistance would be, where you would have a Congress that would say, hey, this is our function. Let's make sure that we honor that function in the right way and make the appropriate decision for around our Department of Education. But this is also how this administration has operated. They always push the envelope until somebody tells them they can't do it. And even when somebody says they can't do it, they still step over that line and push as far as they can until either the courts or some other authoritative body weighs in. And that's why, it's critically important as we, head toward midterm elections that we change that majority in Congress in a way that is honoring the role that Congress plays in making the decision about our Department of Education and any other agency that's a part of the federal government. And like I said, this is very problematic. It's very scary, but it's also not surprising because it's been their plan. Project 2025 said this. Reagan has not wanted to dismantle the Department of Education. It is a part of the history of the Republican Party, and we have to understand why they're trying to do this. 1, siphon out resources. 2, undermining education across the country for those that can't afford private institutions to educate their children.
So we're looking at some kind of elite caste-based education system as the federal Department of Education is zeroed out. And the Republicans argue for more and more public funds to private schools with different standards and different levels of accountability. That is, public funds may support, some have argued, private schools, but then these private schools also reserve the right to determine who enters the private schools, to determine the standards, could discriminate on the basis of race, sex, gender, or any of the various other religious litmus tests that may be required to enter their particular institutions of higher education or elementary, if you will. education. And I'm thinking that, of course, one of the great challenges is it bankrupts the idea of the public school system.
Definitely. It definitely bankrupts the idea of the public system. But let me put into context as well how our education system is structured, because I don't want folks to think that the way in which our federal government interacts with our education system is a perfect system, that, all of those issues go away. Our education system was already a hodgepodge of systems across the country, where they're controlled on the state and local level around what those education systems look like. There's some federal laws that govern, that protect young people across the country. And when we're talking about the civil rights enforcement and functions of the department, those things exist through Congress. Also, the formulas around money that is pushed out to state and local governments around education is allocated by Congress through the Department of Education to happen. So those things have to continue to happen. The problem is that as they dismantle and as they try to disperse the department into other places, you don't have this strategic place that is fundamentally focused on how, as Americans, we have a public education system that serves all of our children, that don't leave children behind. And without that function, we can't be a leader in the world and not have a strong public education system, an education system that our country invests in our young people. That means the innovation, the thinking, the best practices, their safety and their health and well-being are all part of having a functioning public education system. And so the dismantling is not just about moving resources around or getting rid of programs and things of that nature. It is really about how we are strategically able to compete in the world when our young people are not getting the best of us, right? The best of us as adults that provide the supports that young people need to thrive in this world. And I think it undermines our standing as a nation in this world. And we'll see the results of that through the dismantling of that.
So I'm glad you raised this question of the global education environment, right? You talked about competitiveness in the world, but then that raises, at least from my perspective, a question about curriculum, about what's taking place in schools across this country, even in this greatly fragmented education state, which has largely been locally controlled and locally run, with different tax formulas, different formulas by which education is provided to our children. Sometimes the burden is on property owners. Sometimes the burden is on a combination of businesses that might locate in a community plus property owners, hence lower property taxes, but a greater burden for business to actually encourage and support through taxation policies that do provide high quality education not far from the jurisdictions of business. Now, my concern is, when is the last time American curriculum, K through 12, has changed on any significant level to prepare our children for today's economy? And by that, I mean the global economy. AI is a reality. Our currency is changing. The way in which we pay for things is changing. And yet, if I walked into a K through 12 classroom today, I'm almost as confident, Diallo, as the conversation that we're having here, that not much has changed since I was in school, K through 12, that the same Black History Month celebrations are taking place, that the teacher is still pulling out that same folder of the 30 or 40 Blacks that they put up around the room during Black History Month, and they grab an inventor and talk about that. I'm saying that, is public education on a competitive level with private schools that are actually keeping up and preparing children for the global marketplace?
So my short answer is no, but I think that is a hodgepodge across the country. It depends on where you are, where you're located, what zip code you live in. I think One, I think we're very overdue, long overdue for revamping and a reimagining of what our public education system should be in this country. What are the tools that young people need in order to be successful, to thrive, to be healthy, to be able to be nimble in a forever changing world, right? What are the skills that they need, both interpersonal skills and specific technical skills, right? But I think that varies from the South Side of Chicago, from Compton, LA, to, you know, the deep suburbs that are very well resourced areas. I think that there's some places where they are trying to innovate within schools, and there are places where folks are trying to innovate around education. That being said, I think that folks that are in more low income environments, that are in more rural environments, typically get the short end of the stick as far as the resources they need in order to be competitive globally. And I think that's where we have to be strategic thinkers as Americans. What should our public education system look like? Who should make the decisions around what curriculum our young people are getting? Because basically the curriculum is really developed on a state-by-state level. The federal government doesn't, or the Department of Education doesn't dictate the curriculum that is being implemented within schools across the country already. And so I think that there's a necessity around what are the best practices, what are folks innovating around the world, and what are the things that our young people need to learn, and how are they able to learn? What are the tools that they need? It's beyond just the X's and O's, like we say in sports. It's really about what are the cognitive skills that they need in order to be really nimble in this changing environment.
I want to make the case for why the Department of Education is so important, because at the local level, there are some elected officials and politicians, generation after generation, who have no interest in a high quality education for every student in the local school.
Mm-hmm.
In some coal mining counties, for decades, maybe even for a century and a half, the future of a student who graduated from a local high school, if they graduated at all, was to return to the coal mine. There was no expectation that they would leave some parts of Kentucky or some parts of Pennsylvania and become doctors or lawyers and never return to, you know, the idea of black lung disease or to coal mining. And so there's no interest in improving education beyond that which the expectations for how to provide for your family might ultimately be. It would be the federal government that would raise the standards of local education, giving children a chance to get the highest possible education and make a judgment when they graduate from high school or college as to the direction that they want to go. And when you think about segregated schools and what the limitations were, you can only imagine in rural areas where, who's going to run the family farm after you get your education? Well, the expectation is that you'll come back and be in the agricultural business, or you'll know something about agribusiness at the family farm level, which may ultimately be a larger family farm. But without the federal government saying, listen, by the time you graduate from high school, you need to be computer literate. You need to have certain algebraic classes that you've completed. You need to have a working knowledge of history. You need to know that college is available for you to move on to higher levels of living beyond being in agriculture, or maybe you can sophisticate agriculture. My only point is there has to be a national standard that's pushing education to another level. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the J Lunch Club. It is moving. It is Fat Meat Fridays. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. California Attorney General Rob Bonta says he's investigating possible discrimination in the response to last year's Eaton fire, where nearly all of the victims were from the historically black community of West Altadena.
There was indisputably a delayed emergency notification and evacuation of West Altadena.
The LA County Fire Department says it will fully cooperate, adding that crews did the best they could during the wildfire. A new study has found harmful chemicals in hair extensions marketed to Black women. Researchers tested more than 40 products and identified over 160 chemicals, including pesticides and flame retardants. And former Clippers point guard Chris Paul is retiring after 21 seasons in the NBA. The 40-year-old announced the decision on social media. Paul also played for the Hornets, Rockets, Thunder, Suns, Warriors, and Spurs. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Head to Waba Grill weekdays after 3 p.m. for their $5 happy hour and try their new Chili Crisp dumplings. Bold, crunchy, and tossed in a fiery crisp, paired with a premium Waba beverage drink like their authentic Thai tea. Get both for just $5 only at Waba Grill. It's for you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers got an important win Thursday night heading into the All-Star break. They needed a win after losing their last two at home. The Lakers beat Dallas 124-104, a game in which LeBron made more history. At age 41, LeBron became the oldest NBA player to post a triple-double, 28 points, 12 assists, and 10 rebounds. The Lakers go into the break with a 33-21 record, fifth in the Western Conference. Tonight's NBA HBCU Classic at the Forum will be a conference game for Hampton University and North Carolina A&T. Both schools are now in the Coastal Athletic Conference after being longtime members in the MEAC Conference. This will be the sixth HBCU Classic during NBA All-Star Weekend. The NBA started the event in 2021 with the intent of creating more exposure for HBCU men's basketball programs. 8 o'clock tip-off tonight in Inglewood. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Check it out. After nearly 40 years of conversations with presidents, poets, and cultural icons, I have learned that the difference between a good conversation and an unforgettable one is not what you say, it is how you listen. Most people listen to respond. I learned to listen to learn and follow. When you master this, something remarkable happens. People just open up. They leave the conversation feeling truly heard, and they never forget you. Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley, and for the first time in my life, I'm teaching everything I have learned. The Art of Conversation, a 4-week masterclass for podcasters, leaders, and professionals who understand that the ability to connect is their greatest competitive advantage. Our founding cohort starts Monday, February the 16th, and only a limited number of seats remain. Enroll right now at TavisTalks.com. That's TavisTalks.com.
Yeah, this is all good.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome aboard to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. As former Senior Equity Fellow at the Schott Foundation for Public Education, Diallo Brooks bridged the gap between national policymakers and grassroots education justice organizations to advance progressive racial justice policies. His fellowship embedded him with the U.S. Department of Education under the Biden administration, where he served as a senior executive championing community and equity-focused policies. Diallo previously served as the senior vice president of programs and advocacy at the Schott Foundation, leading grant-making and programmatic initiatives for educational equity and justice. At People for the American Way, he was the senior director of field mobilization, acting as a national spokesperson on civil rights, voting rights, and civic engagement. He led the Defend the Black Vote initiative, successfully engaging millions of Black voters in the 2020 election. Diallo Brooks, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Diallo, I think I have you muted.
Sorry, that wasn't me.
Not a problem. Hey, Diallo, listen, let's pick up on where we were before the break, and that was that the very nature of a football game is to have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And even the quarterback reports to the coach, because all of these players on the field don't get to operate separate and apart from the team effort. If America is going to be competitive globally in the area of education, all of these school districts and all of these different curriculi, all of these different funding mechanisms for some schools and other schools, all separate and unequal, how is it possible to move the nation forward when the system itself is designed where some children will never have the same opportunities at the same age in the same classroom as other students who might live in more thriving and prosperous neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think that's the problem of our design. And let me just be really, really clear about what the federal government does and what it doesn't do, because I think there's a lot of confusion around the country about that. People don't really understand that. And so, no, the federal government, we were talking about curriculum, does not impose curriculum or academic standards. But what the federal government does do is it creates and works to kind of give guidance on what those standards should be. And some of that is under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and then the Every Student Succeeds Act, which are acts passed by Congress and then signed by a president. But there is a statewide assessment are supposed to align with the standards that the federal government has kind of outlined. Now, once again, the federal government doesn't necessarily hold those folks accountable in the same way, but they set up what those standards should look like. And they set up some accountability systems that support the states.
Are these mandatory standards, or are these?
So they're not mandatory; they're recommended standards.
Interesting.
And so there is a common core curriculum, but that was set up by the National Governors Association, and the Council of State Government, state school officers got together and said, let's come up with these common core standards and things that we think all students should know. So the federal role in higher education is to provide financial aid, to regulate institutions receiving the funds from the federal government, and to collect data and to enforce civil rights. So that's kind of where the federal government stands as it relates to education. And that's up to the states to design their own accountability systems on the ground, to design their own standards on the ground, or ways of assessing the standards. So the statewide tests that people either complain about, or some folks, want better testing on the ground. And the states are responsible for setting that up and holding folks accountable to that. And so it goes back to your point, Jesse, around there is no coach that is saying, oh, or I would even take it even higher. There's no general manager. You set up, we just finished football season. You have a general manager that says, okay, I hire the coach, I hire the players, and then the coach, designs how the players operate on the ground. Well, in our system, it's just a hodgepodge of folks that make the decision around what education looks like on the ground. And I think that's problematic long-term for our country, particularly if you have people that are really invested in having high quality education for our young people, not having a place where people can go to and say, okay, this is what our standards are. This is the things that we need to implement in our education system. And here's how we track the outcomes. Here's how we support local folks in making those education decisions. And ultimately that we create and support thriving young people.
Let's play true or false for a moment here so we can make sure that everybody's in this conversation. Some school systems have laptops for all of their children and some don't. True or false?
That's most likely true.
Some students and education systems are studying Black History Month in public schools and some are not. True or false?
That's definitely true.
So some of us are learning about Black history this month in our public schools. And there are other public schools in the nation where Black History Month is not being celebrated.
Right. Especially under this administration.
Especially under this administration, but previous administrations as well. I'm not letting Joe Biden.
Previous administrations as well, but I think there was a fine point in this administration to undermine that.
I think that's accurate. Some schools have teachers who have college degrees and master's degrees as part of the standards for working in their public school. And there are some schools who don't have the same standards. True or false?
Yeah, I think there's a mix of standards there. So I think that's true.
So a school in a rural area might have a different funding base than, let's say, a school that operates in a neighborhood that is largely based on the tech economy. True or false?
True.
So those companies might adopt a local school because their children go there and make sure that those schools are completely outfitted with the most modern technology, preparing their children to succeed them across the street at Google or any of the other major corporations that are participating in the global economy. True or false?
True.
But then if I live next door to a farm, or I am miles and miles away from a public education, from a major industry, then the chances are in that particular school, I may be learning more about seasons and about agricultural work than I am about the global economy. True or false?
That could be definitely true.
So the system itself, both publicly funded and in some cases privately funded, is inherently separate and unequal without a U.S. Department of Education standards at the highest possible quality that the Department of Education can determine, to give local school systems something to reach to and reach for, so that a student who graduates in an 8th grade class in this state or in this county is graduating on a comparable level with a student who might be going to high school in Beverly Hills.
That's true.
Now, of course, this does not have constitutional support. This is kind of congressional prodding through the Department of Education. It's kind of building a more perfect union through the hodgepodge education system that we as Americans have come to know and accept. But most of us as parents, we just know that there's a school near our home, and that's where our children are going to go to school and return home. We've not necessarily reflected upon all that goes into that school or all that is not present in that school simply because of the zip code we live in, correct?
True.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with our resident education expert, Diallo Brooks, on the J Lunch Club on Fat Meat Fridays when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Check it out. After nearly 40 years of conversations with presidents, poets, and cultural icons, I have learned that the difference between a good conversation and an unforgettable one is not what you say, it is how you listen. Most people listen to respond. I learned to listen to learn and follow. When you master this, something remarkable happens. People just open up. They leave the conversation feeling truly heard, and they never forget you. Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley, and for the first time in my life, I'm teaching everything I have learned. The Art of Conversation, a 4-week masterclass for podcasters, leaders, and professionals who understand that the ability to connect is their greatest competitive advantage. Our founding cohort starts Monday, February the 16th, and only a limited number of seats remain. Enroll right now at TavisTalks.com. That's TavisTalks.com.
Yeah, this is all good.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Jackson Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where our very special guest is our education. I don't want to call him an education consultant. He's just an education expert. He's worked in the department. He's worked in the private sector. He knows exactly what the separate and unequal nature of American education is, and I'm proud to call him my friend. Diallo, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Diallo, the system is inherently broken, with lots of inefficiencies in light of the previous interrogation that I think I offered you with the true and false narratives. And I say that to say that when it comes to the idea, for example, of building highways and interstate systems, all of the states have come together to agree that this is what an exit looks like. This is what a stop sign looks like. This is what stoplights look like. This is what it means to go across railroad tracks and the behavior of motor vehicles on or near railroad tracks. There seems to be a more perfect union when it comes to transportation. There's a more perfect union if I take off from O'Hare Airport and land in Washington, Reagan, or LAX, or San Francisco, SFO. But when I take off from Chicago, there's a reasonable assurance that the runway I'm going to land on, protected and built by the federal government, is going to be the same length as the one I departed from. The pilots in those aircraft are reasonably assured that that's going to be the case. They won't suddenly land at SFO or LAX and there's half a runway there. We're very serious about aviation. But when it comes to public education, this school has basketball coaches and football coaches and fencing coaches and martial arts classes and ballet classes and music and art and multiple languages, Greek, Latin, French, and English. But when I get to a school system over here, we got nothing but jive and struggling to do jive correctly. No Greek, no Latin, no French, no English. Public school, but simply because of the zip code that I live in, what is being offered to my child is fundamentally different than can be offered in another public education system. That's point one. And then point number two, real estate. When parents buy a home today, they buy a home and a school. They don't just say, hey, I like the house. Honey, I love the house that we're about to buy here. If we have young children, as soon as we look at the home, we want to know, and it's part of the the hook to buying the home. Hey, come over and look at this public school and its standards, because this is likely where my child is going to walk to school every day. And so to buy my home, I'm also buying the local public school. Real estate is also part of this education component. Help me with those two examples right there in terms of the nature of the complexity of the problem.
Yeah, I think those are great examples of just like where you're born determines the level of resources you get as a young person, as a community. And I think it's a problematic system. And with the way our system is set up, it varies from state to state. Some states have actually worked on their funding formula to kind of level the playing field around the resources. I know years ago I was in Chicago when there was a big discrepancy around how, for the state of Illinois, how they go about funding their public education system. And it undermines the ability, particularly of those that have traditionally been left behind in our economy, been left behind in our country, to get and catch up. Not even to excel, but just to catch up, because the resources that they have been given are less than the resources their counterparts in more affluent spaces. And so we have to do a better job of putting folks in decision-making positions that have the best interests of all of our young people in mind when they're making public policy around how we support our young people to grow and thrive in this world. And our public education system is a critical and vital part of that. It is something that really should be a right for every young person to get a high quality, high standards of education and get the supports they need to become functioning adults, innovative adults, to be able to live their wildest dreams because they have the foundational tools that help them to develop into the person and the people that we need them to be.
I could hire Diallo Brooks's consulting firm for my local school system right now. However, after the improvements and the best advice implemented by, let's just say, Diallo Brooks Consulting, I'm not even suggesting that the company actually exists. But the fact of the matter is there are thousands of school systems and thousands of school districts across the country that do not have access to one Diallo Brooks. So now watch this. It seems to me that the people who have the most and the best interest of making sure schools are of equal high quality are actually the parents, the people who make a decision for where their child goes to school. I'm not going down the road of choice. I'm saying that they should be empowered with a constitutional right to a public education of equal high quality, that wherever they live, they have the legal right to go into federal court and say, listen, there are amenities at this school over here that belong right here at the school that's not far from my home because of the useful life of the education of my child in this school. I don't need this to happen 10 years from now. I need my child while they're in their formative development years to have access to all of the above right now so that their intellectual and spiritual capacity can grow to the fullest extent of their maturing and developmental years. And it's not just tied to, we got Diallo here who's really, really concerned about our local school system, or Jesse Jr. is really, really concerned about our local school system. In other words, on this question, Diallo, we have about 3 minutes before we close, and I know we're going to get a word of hope from you. This all boils down to a nation's commitment to build a more perfect union, which could represent hundreds of thousands of jobs, not only in construction, but in teaching, just to achieve this national goal. If we can shoot a man to the moon and make it a national goal during the Kennedy administration, we can certainly build these schools of equal high quality and put every single American to work, promising a future for our children that would be, at this point, unimaginable.
Yeah, and it has to be something that, Jesse, that we have the will as a country to step into that void and really create solutions. I think what you offered is one solution of being able to hold legally accountable that particular school district within the larger school systems, accountable about moving the resources needed for that young person if those resources are not there. But it also takes a lot of forward thinking about really reimagining what we want our young people to come away with from having educational experience, right? And I don't say a system because it sounds so like draconian and something that's forced, but really like imagining what we can, like, we are taught in certain spaces to just open up your imagination to all the possibilities. And we need leaders that are able to open up their minds to all of the possibilities about how we can create thriving environments for our young people and move resources to make that happen. That's exactly what we need to do. And we are capable of doing it. It just takes the will to make it happen.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is the J Lunch Club. Our regular contributor is one of the great minds in education reform in the nation. He's fought for civil rights and social justice and educational equity across this nation. I'm particularly proud to call Diallo Brooks my friend. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Fat Meat Fridays. Our creator, Gina Towns, along with Reverend Dix, will be with us shortly when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. California Attorney General Rob Bonta says he's investigating possible discrimination in the response to last year's Eaton fire, where nearly all of the victims were from the historically Black community of West Altadena.
there was indisputably a delayed emergency notification and evacuation of West Altadena.
The LA County Fire Department says it will fully cooperate, adding that crews did the best they could during the wildfire. A new study has found harmful chemicals in hair extensions marketed to Black women. Researchers tested more than 40 products and identified over 160 chemicals, including pesticides and flame retardants. And former Clippers point guard Chris Paul is retiring after 21 seasons in the NBA. The 40-year-old announced the decision on social media. Paul also played for the Hornets, Rockets, Thunder, Suns, Warriors, and Spurs. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Head to Waba Grill weekdays after 3 p.m. for their $5 happy hour and try their new Chili Crisp dumplings. Bold, crunchy, and tossed in a fiery crisp, paired with a premium Wa beverage drink like their authentic Thai tea. Get both for just $5 only at Waba Grill. It's for you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Chris Paul, one of the greatest point guards to ever play in the NBA, announced his retirement today after 21 seasons. Paul played 7 of those seasons with the Clippers. The 12-time All-Star is a member of the NBA 75th anniversary team. He led the league in assists 5 times and was a 9-time selection to the All-Defense team. He'll be a first-ballot Hall of Famer in 2031. The Lakers have a decision to make. Luka Doncic was the leading vote-getter for Sunday's NBA All-Star game, but he's missed the last 4 games with a hamstring injury. It could be disastrous if Doncic tries to play Sunday and gets hurt again. Tonight at 6, you can get your Friday night sports fix with Out of Bounds in prime time. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for 60 minutes of sports chatter with some Black folks flavor. You're welcome to hang out with us on the KBLA YouTube channel or hit us up at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Check it out. After nearly 40 years of conversations with presidents, poets, and cultural icons, I have learned that the difference between a good conversation and an unforgettable one is not what you say, it is how you listen. Most people listen to respond. I learned to listen to learn and follow. When you master this, something remarkable happens. People just open up. They leave the conversation feeling truly heard, and they never forget you. Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley, and for the first time in my life, I'm teaching everything I have learned. The Art of Conversation, a 4-week masterclass for podcasters, leaders, and professionals who understand that the ability to connect is their greatest competitive advantage. Our founding cohort starts Monday, February the 16th, and only a limited number of seats remain. Enroll right now at TavisTalks.com. That's TavisTalks.com.
Yeah, this is all good.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
It's Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's February 13th, the 13th day of Black History Month, and you're on the J Lunch Club on Fat Meat Fridays with the creator of our show, Gina Towns, president and CEO of 519 Productions, and the executive producer, creative director, and program director of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Smiley Audio Media, KBLA Talk 1580. She's also the host of Reflectivity on our weekly series, Fat Meat Fridays, a graduate of Hampton University with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Media Arts and Journalism. Gina also earned a Master of Arts in Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Got a little flu bug I'm fighting over here. Yeah. It's not been particularly kind to me right through this season.
There is something going around.
People definitely need to take care of themselves and pay attention to how they're feeling. No doubt about that. I also want to encourage our listeners to please keep my father, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., in your prayers. He's been in a struggle, which is a very public struggle. Had some private time with him today, and I just got him on my mind right now. Our very special guest in this hour is Pastor Raymond C. Dix Jr. He's served faithfully in the preaching ministry of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the past 44 years and is now serving in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area as senior pastor of Pilgrim Baptist Church. Pastor Dix comes to Pilgrim with over 30 years of pastoral experience, with much of it being urban, inner city ministerial experience. Pastor Dix strongly believes that the way of hope and community is the gospel of Jesus. He is a deep believer in expository preaching and teaching in the church community. And for those of you on the 405, the 101, the 10, the 5, the 110, and the 118, we need to hear a word from Pastor Dix today. Pastor Dix, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good afternoon, my brother. It's good to be here, and thank you so much for having us.
I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that you pop in with us on Fridays. You really get me to my weekend. Gina, the great Pastor Dix is with us from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Listen, I am on the back end of whatever it is you might be battling yourself now with this cold thing, man. For like 2 weeks. So I'm hoping that it's winding up now, and this Sunday I'll be in the saddle ready to ride. So we'll see.
Pastor, I'm wondering if people in Los Angeles even know what a cold is, man.
They have no idea. They don't know what it's like to live in a state like Indiana, Illinois, where you have all 4 seasons in one day.
I mean, going in and out of buildings, in and out of heat and cold. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, well, at least we have a chance for things to properly die,
Yeah.
like go dormant. You have some states where it's so humid that it's kind of moldy, in my estimation. I didn't call any states, but you know who you are if you're listening.
Definitely not La La Land.
June bug and them not be walking down your street because they don't ever die, and the whole family just gets bigger and bigger. But
That's the other thing about brothers in Chicago and the Midwest and in Indiana. We don't see these brothers for like 6 months. These Negroes come from hibernation. This cold runs everybody indoors, and then they come out like, when they come out, man, when the weather changes, it's like, bro, you still here?
You're right. You are right.
Pastor Dix, there's a lot going on in the world. Deeply troubling revelations since we last talked. We've seen the president of the United States offer some pretty mean memes of the president of the United States, former President Barack Obama. We have seen just a viciousness at every level. My brother had the opportunity to pray at the prayer breakfast, and boy, he put one on him in terms of his moral failings. And I was particularly proud of him. But there's got to be a lot going on in your mind too, Pastor. Share with us some of your thoughts at this hour.
Well, there is, and certainly I stand, unsurprised by what is happening in our world, and largely because we live in a world that is perishing. One of the toughest things to do is to live your theological paradigm in a world like this, where people are unapologetically evil, unapologetically mean, and yet trying to live that your theological reality in such a world places a heavy burden on one's soul. And so we actually begin to feel like there is no hope. And that's the attack of the enemy against the ideal of hope and keeping our faith and our eyes fixed on our blessings.
Mm-hmm. Gina?
Well, you just said a whole mouthful, and I can't wait for us to unpack it properly when we come forward from the break. But first and foremost, we just got done talking about all of us ailing, and the heavy load that you just talked about also affects us spiritually. It affects us in every single way, and it bears down on your resistance. And so, you can be taking all the vitamins in the world, but the stress of today's world and that inherent evil that you just talked about, how people don't want to stop for the stop sign and get mad because you do, or whatever it is, they're standing in line. They don't want to stand in line at the grocery store. Nobody smiles at anybody. Nobody's even nice to the elderly or children anymore. And I don't, when I say nobody, of course, if you're listening, and you say, I'm good for you. I mean, and that's as we should be. We should continue to set that model. But thank you for, setting the stage for us so that we could really talk about that load. And as I describe it, I feel like sometimes that the earth is groaning.
I think that's right. Gina, I want to share with Pastor Dix that earlier in the week, we talked about the president of the United States differentiating him from the Republican Party, but as an individual. And the term that came to mind for me, Pastor, was legion. That there's so many different spirits in the man, but it all comes together in one person. And we don't know what spirit, pigs in a parlor, we don't know what spirit is going to present itself at any given day. But how do we refer to him? How do we see him? I don't see him anything as other than legion at this point, or there are many, but there is one. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, our very special guest, Pastor Raymond C. Dix Jr. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Afternoon Drive Time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
What's up? What's up? What's up? You got to laugh the pain away.
Hey, KBLA delegation, happy Black History Month. Around here, we celebrate our culture, our community, and our contributions daily. But this year, as we observe the 100th anniversary of Black History Month celebrations, we're excited about our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, honoring comedy greats. On Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum in downtown LA, we're toasting D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Munell, Dion Cole, and Martin Lawrence with a surprise guest appearance. A limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon remain, so now would be a good time to head to KBLA1580.com to secure one for yourself. That's KBLA1580.com. A little laughter goes a long way, especially in times like these. So come, join us for our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. Again, tickets are available right now at KBLA1580.com.
Well, I hang around my boy. He's been married for 6 years. Videotaping his wedding day, never watched it. Now and every day he watch it every day, but he watch it in reverse. Because he said he loves seeing himself take that ring back off of that finger. Walking back down that aisle, just waving at her ugly mother down the church, getting back in the limo, back at the bachelor party. Look how happy I was.
KBLA Talk 1580 thanks LA City Council members Curran D. Price Jr. and Heather Hutt for being the presenting sponsors at this year's Black History Month Luncheon, honoring excellence, resilience, and achievement. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Booty past the clean test. Salmon weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Junior Show. King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Lesbovia, Barbara Jean. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on this day, February 13th, in basketball, civil rights, finance, community, human rights, and arts. We made a contribution. 1923, in basketball, the New York Renaissance, the Wrens, the first all-black professional basketball team, was founded by Robert L. Douglas. In 1957, on this date, civil rights, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, was organized in New Orleans with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. elected as its first president. In 1970, in finance, Joseph Searles was admitted as the first black member of the New York Stock Exchange. Imagine that. 1970, the first time we made it to the stock exchange. 1993, in community, Black Love Day was founded by Ayo Handi Kindi to encourage self-love, community, and the healing of racial trauma. In 1965, in civil rights, Malcolm X's home in New York City was bombed, which was his last public appearance before his assassination 1 week later. In 1892, in the arts, the first African-American performers, the World's Fair Colored Opera Company, appeared at Carnegie Hall. And the significance of Black Love Day on February 13th, founded in 1993. This day serves as a counter celebration to Valentine's Day, focusing on 5 tenets: love for the creator, self, family, community, and the black race. It promotes love in action and the use of the greeting, Nayoya Nya Akoma, get a heart and be patient. Therefore, today is actually the day, not tomorrow, that we provide an alternative to Valentine's Day, to passing out chocolate. This day has a purpose beginning in 1993 in African American or Black history. Reverend Dix is our very special guest in this hour. Gina, Reverend Dix is here.
Reverend Dix is here. I think I want to go back. I really liked what you just talked about on Black Love Day and loving ourselves. And when I thought about today with you and Reverend Dix in mind and our discussion following a very meaty week. You know, I like Fat Meat Friday. And so there was a lot to put in the skillet and chew on once you got out the fat in the skillet. This whole idea of having tenets for ourselves, love the creator, self, family, community, and the black race, highlighted by love in action. And I mean, love is an action. And I think, when I looked at Reverend Dix's bio, which if you are listening, his favorite passage of scripture is, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us." And I wanted him to take some time and lay that out for us today, because we have within us, we've talked about, Reverend Dix, over the week, what are we going to do? What should we do? How should we do it? We'll look at the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Then it can look very daunting for a generation who has not had to be in the throes of a civil rights movement. How should that movement look? It can't look like it used to, although you may extract some things from it. I mean, we should learn from history. But when I thought about your favorite scripture and being treasure in jars of clay, I think we as Black people can really get something from that. Can you lay that out?
Sure. Thank you so much. I can say that probably in the last 15 or 20 years, that particular passage has become my favorite passage of scripture. And here's the reason why. Whenever you stand in for God and declare his gospel to a generation, to a people, there's always the temptation to see yourself as more important than you might actually be. And that scripture reminds me that I am but a vessel of clay. When you unpack the Greek there, I believe, and perhaps Jesse Jr. can help me on that, but you unpack the Greek there, it really kind of means that a pot that is cracked or that is marred or messed up. And so I preached a sermon once from that text, and it said, good news from a cracked pot. you know, and that's essentially what I reminded myself that I am. I am grateful that God uses me. I'm amazed that he uses me. I know that I'm so undeserving in everything that he has done in my life. But at the same time, I am humbled by this calling, by this burden of sharing the gospel with the world. And I don't ever want to forget that God is the only one that can really take someone who has brokenness in their life and pour out his truth, his objective truth, the story of Jesus, the gospel. So I think that's kind of what Paul had in mind when he was saying, you know, we have this treasure, this gospel in cracked pots. You know, we're leaky. We messed up. And I'll finish with this. My grandmother had a Kool-Aid pitcher. Now, some of you may not be old enough to remember Kool-Aid, but we used to always have some Kool-Aid in the Gina, in the refrigerator. And in that Kool-Aid pitcher, I looked at it, it was years old. It had scraped. The top didn't fit right. And one day I said to her, I said, Graham, I said, here's the problem. The top doesn't fit on the Kool-Aid. I have to be extra careful when I pour it that the top doesn't come off. And she looked at me, you know, and said something very deep that probably she didn't even realize how deep it was she was saying. She said, boy, that pitcher only has one job, and that's to keep Kool-Aid cold and keep it from leaking all over her refrigerator. So what I'm saying is that we don't often look polished as we maybe should, but the job we have is the gospel is so powerful that it overcomes our deficiencies to help people come to know who Jesus really is. And that's kind of why that's my favorite scripture. See, I'm not hearing you, Gina. Okay.
I'm sorry. How do we today? Gina said.
Okay.
Gina said, how do we apply it to ourselves today?
Oh, okay. So here's the thing. I think those of us who work on the behalf of others in particular have to remember with humility that God didn't have to choose us, which ought to make us thankful that he did, and to keep focused on our calling and what we should be about. And that's his word first and foremost. And I think for the persons that listen and come and I don't like really use this word average Christian, but for lack of a better one right now, for Christians who populate our pews and our churches and things like that, I think it is a calling to remember that when you take the witness of Christ into the world, you don't have to worry about having all your ducks in a row. As a matter of fact, you disarm the enemy when you say, let me tell you the problems that I've had, but I've held on to God's unchanging hand. I've kept the faith. I've refused to be distracted by the things of the world. And that's the thing. So I think what Paul was laser focused on is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world. And then how we live that gospel in the world is we love our neighbor as ourselves. We do good to them that mistreat us. We share what we have with others so that God is glorified and his name is proclaimed through all the world.
You know, I want to comment on the spirit energy of Christianity, if I might, for just a moment, by making a suggestion. The highest form of religion, I believe, is the sect of one. The sect of one. A personal relationship between a person and God. A sect of one with highest level of consciousness. And I think the person who probably best exhibits that religion from my perspective is Jesus of Nazareth. And I say that because when I look at, for example, even domestically, our models of leadership in the White House, from Jimmy Carter to the present, there is a spirit energy that exudes from the sect of one, the president of the United States, a shepherd, if you will. That's certainly the way we felt at the beginning and the end of the Carter administration. Some have suggested that it wasn't, Pastor Dix, a very productive administration economically. We lost the Iran hostages, et cetera, and of course, but there was a spirit energy. There was a decency about Carter. that mattered to the republic and to the fabric of the nation itself. I wasn't particularly a big fan of Ronald Reagan, but he sure made me feel good during Cold War.
A communicator.
I mean, that guy could communicate, right? And George H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, brought a certain level of competence to the office. George W. Bush, and then, of course, President Obama and succeeding presidents, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this fundamental shift in the spirit energy in the sect of one that is represented by the White House's current occupant. And to describe that, I can only think of Legion. And I spoke about it just before the break, that there are so many personalities, there are so many different spirits that are unkind that all come together in a single person. It's offending members of the press corps, calling a reporter Miss Piggy, locking up Don Lemon, referring to members of Congress out of their names, putting Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero, this treatment of the immigrant in our nation's cities and around our country, his attitude and disposition with respect to Venezuelans and Africans and Caribbeans and Somalians. And it is so vulgar that it's impossible to imagine that so many different spirits exist in a single person. And I separated, Pastor Dix, earlier this week, this one person from my Republican friends who ideologically might have differences from me that I can communicate with. But we agree to agree, we agree to disagree, and we keep it moving. They don't mean me any harm, and they know I pray they know I don't mean them any harm. But when it comes to this particular, if you will, our producer introduced me to this book, The Pig in the Parlor, and all of these spirits that, can be found in a swine. I can only see the president now. I can't see him in Republican terms because I know too many decent Republicans. I just see him as Legion. Am I wrong for that, Dr.
Well,
Dix?
I certainly understand the analogy of that. And I think back to that moment when Jesus asked those demons what was his name, and they said Legion, for we are many, occupying the space of one individual. And I think about, why did Jesus cast out those demons from that man? And I have to believe that part of his purpose was that if he allowed those demons to reside there, those who were with him on his mission, who were walking with him, would somehow be distracted by the fact that this person who is cutting himself and doing these things and has been wailing all night long would continue to be a distraction to the mission of Christ. And I think that that's the key thing here with the current occupant, as you say, in the White House, is that I think Donald Trump serves in many ways as one of the greatest distractions the Black church has ever seen. And I think that what God is doing is saying that you have to get back to me. You have to come back to me. You have to refocus on the fact that you've got children in the Black community right here in Fort Wayne that can't read in the 3rd grade. And that there are some pressing issues with food deserts and other things that are happening. We have a crisis of family in the Black community, and we rail against, from the pulpit, Donald Trump this and Donald Trump that. Let me tell you something. That's the enemy's greatest plan right there. Get you to talking about Donald Trump. You'll forget the fact that you've got people in your community that need Jesus. I'll finish with this. Last year, we had a lady, 86 years old, I think I may have told you this before, who was shot dead in her doorway by 2 young men in her own community. She was the mother of that block, and they killed her, and she was a member of our church. And I'm saying, if I have one tyrant 3,000 miles away, my greatest worry is 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away.
Gina?
I can't wait till we come forward to the break so that we can continue this conversation with Pastor Dix, because what you bring up is such an interesting point, because we take our eyes and fix them on something other than, and especially even when we looked at what today is a day for us to remember the tenets of in our own community and amongst our own people.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Fat Meat Friday with Gina Towns and our very special guest, Reverend Dix. More when we come forward on Jesse Jackson Jr.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Nearly 24 Buddhist monks wrapped up their walk for peace in Annapolis on Thursday, drawing thousands to the State House. The monks began their journey in Texas in October, reached D.C. earlier this week, then continued into Maryland.
No one can do this for us. We have to do it ourselves.
They were welcomed by Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller and later had a private lunch with Black Governor Wes Moore and First Lady Dawn Moore. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon has pleaded not guilty to federal charges tied to an anti-ICE protest at a Minnesota church last month. Lemon says he was there reporting as an independent journalist. And New York's Attorney General says an investigation found Buffalo Public Schools disproportionately suspended students of color and those with disabilities. The report shows Black and Latino students were more likely to be suspended for minor issues like tardiness. The district will now be monitored for 4 years under an agreement with the AG's office. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Head to Waba Grill weekdays after 3 p.m. for their $5 happy hour and try their new Chili Crisp dumplings. Bold, crunchy, and tossed in a fiery crisp paired with a premium Wa beverage drink like their authentic Thai tea. Get both for just $5 only at Waba Grill. It's for you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Chris Paul, one of the greatest point guards to ever play in the NBA, announced his retirement today after 21 seasons. Paul played 7 of those seasons with the Clippers. The 12-time All-Star is a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. He led the league in assists 5 times and was a 9-time selection to the All-Defense team. He'll be a first-ballot Hall of Famer in 2031. The Lakers have a decision to make. Luka Doncic was the leading vote-getter for Sunday's NBA All-Star game, but he's missed the last 4 games with a hamstring injury. It could be disastrous if Doncic tries to play Sunday and gets hurt again. Tonight at 6, you can get your Friday night sports fix with Out of Bounds in prime time. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for 60 minutes of sports chatter with some Black folks flavor. You're welcome to hang out with us on the KBLA YouTube channel or hit us up at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in Black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Only available with TurboTax experts. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Gina Towns, our creator and host of Fat Meat Fridays. Our very special guest is Pastor Raymond C. Dix Jr. Pastor Dix currently holds many certifications and recognitions for his years of service, as well as a bachelor's degree in biblical studies from Indiana Wesleyan University. He's currently pursuing an MDiv degree with the intention of completing doctoral studies as well. Pastor Dix is also a member of the A Phi A Fraternity Incorporated. Pastor Dix has never shied away from tough issues. One of them is, why did he pledge A Phi A? I'll
let Gina handle that.
That's a tough issue right there. Believing fervently that God's word answers all things. So maybe it's in divine order that he did not pledge Omega Psi Phi. Reverend Dix's favorite passage of scripture. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. 2 Colossians 4, chapter 7, and the ESV. Dr. Dix, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here as always.
Gina.
That was all really funny. But let me tell you, I see that you successfully made
06 to my brothers out there.
Okay, here we go. Well, we can I'll let Jesse go. We'll get a roof.
He handles tough issues.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. That's right.
We might as well shout out the fact that in Los Angeles tonight at the All-Star game, Hampton University will play North Carolina A&T. Go
Aggie Pride.
Okay, yeah. The
Come on now,
Pirates
what's
are
happening?
coming to bring the noise. And so you have the host and the producer of the show who are going to be rivaling it up tonight. But we all love each other. And so, you know, that little bantering we did between the alphas and I guess the Qs, the deltas are going to be quiet on that one there. But anyway, so, you know, during the break, Raymond, we talked about the fact that in this day, this is not the same movement. And you really brought up a great point that we really can't get around going back to our base, and our base is keeping our eyes fixed on the author and perfecter of our faith. There's been a great apostasy in some ways. There are generations who, I understand from another one of our hosts that are running to church, and church should not be ever viewed as a weakness. But certainly if you're running there, you know that there is something there that you need to get, something missing. Call it thirsty if you want to. And I know that's one of those phrases that my kids use, and I'm like, no, well, thirsty also means this. And so we find ourselves in a desert right now. What is it that we need to really be doing? And from this perspective, how do we look at Malcolm's message and Martin's message and find some common ground for where we are in a new generation?
Well, I would have to begin with this the notion, and I understand where it comes from. This idea that the movement's different today than it is from the past. I think there is one common theme that, or something the movement had in the past that we need today, and that is our movement in the past, in the civil rights era under Dr. King and Malcolm X. They were laser focused on the freedom of African Americans and calling America on the carpet to live up to their creed that all men are created equal. And that was a laser focus. We created songs like "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around." Those are the kinds of things that said we worked without distraction, and we were focused on that. And think about all the distractions they had to deal with. This past summer, I had the chance to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and it was raining. And as I got about halfway across, it stopped raining, and I looked into the sky right there over the Alabama River and saw a double rainbow. And I said, God, thank you. Thank you for this deeply connected experience with my ancestors and my forefathers, as they could have been distracted by that bridge and what stood on the other side, but they were not. And I think that that's something we need to think about. Don't let the current atmosphere distract us from the fact that we are a proud and great people, and we need to live that truth in everyday life. And so instead of spending all of our time worried about something, and then go to church and say, but God has all power. Either he has all power or he doesn't. And if he has all power, then Donald Trump is nothing but a blip in the sands of time.
I think I totally agree with Pastor Dix on that, especially the theological context, the cosmological context. The 60s, 50s, 60s, if you will, the civil rights movement in second Reconstruction, at least the high moment of it, maybe the next highest moment might be the election of Barack Obama, President of the United States, believed in the idea of the redeemability of America, that together we could make it. And there was organizing to take advantage of the system designed by the architects to make it work, that we could amend our way out of our problems, we could pass legislation as a way out of our problems, that we could come together around critical issues as a way out of our problems. And the extent to which organizing is different today is to understand whether or not the American experiment is going to survive at all. And that might be a different organizing. And some of us might be stuck, fighting for, my dad was back in the civil rights days. Dad used to hate when people say, "You one of them leaders from back in the civil rights days." Dad said, "I ain't no old man. Let me back in the civil rights." Yeah, every day is civil rights.
Right.
Civil rights days. Every day is the civil rights days. The only point that I'm making is we bought into a series of events that were personal to Black history, development, culture, and struggle that led to changes in 64, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 65, public accommodations legislation. Now the question before us isn't whether we can improve and pass legislation consistent with the Constitution. The question is whether or not the Constitution itself will endure, and whether or not the fabric of the nation itself can endure. And that is a different calling and a very different struggle, I think, Gina.
Sure. As we are moving forward toward our break, I think that the fabric of that struggle is the very question that I was posing, like, what is the tone and the tenor? And so if there is anything that's different from civil rights, quote unquote, back in the day, and you having made it very clear that this road has been stony, no matter what we do, it is stony the road we trod. As we are wrapping to our break, and when we come forward, I really like to talk about the tone. Does it take a different tone in this generation, or are we still in the tone that we were 60 years ago? And so this is Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Gina Towns. We are with Reverend Raymond Dix. And when we come forward, we're going to answer that question. What is our tone?
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
What if poetry wasn't something you studied, but something you felt? Poetry for the People, the June Jordan Experience, is now live at the Fountain Theater in Los Angeles, celebrating the life and legacy of June Jordan, visionary poet, activist, and truth teller. This vibrant musical experience brings her words to life with rhythm, joy, and power. Directed by Raymond O. Caldwell and featuring music by her longtime collaborator Adrian Torft, it's joy as resistance, love as liberation, and poetry for the people. Tickets are on sale now at fountaintheater.com. That's fountaintheater.com. Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass, and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
Welcome back to Winter Hack Radio, the place for clever hacks to survive the season. Icy driveway? Well, try spreading sand or birdseed to help with traction. Snowy puppy paws? Well, grab a whisk, brush it off, done. Catch COVID-19? Well, just get...
Actually, there's no hack for COVID-19. But if you test positive, prescription medications for COVID exist. Ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
It's game day. Are your moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keeping you from the action? Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, could help you get back to the game. Skyrizi is proven to help people feel significant symptom relief, achieve remission, and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. Skyrizi is a prescription injection medicine for adults. Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis.
Control is everything to me.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combined. Learn more at skyrizi.com or 1-866-SKYRIZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds. Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis, which causes joint pain, stiffness, and swelling? Does this sound like you? Listen to what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy, and for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Visit Tremfya.com or call 1-800-526-7736.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Reflectivity with Gina Towns. Gina co-produced the Emmy Award-nominated documentary Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as a songwriter, co-producer, and performer, her single Yes hit number 26 with a bullet on Billboard. Corporately, she received the 3M Company's highest honor, the Spirit of Quality Award, for those who have the vision and the ability to make it happen. Gina transitioned her skills into full-time ministry in Chicago and later in Atlanta. She's a native of Gary, Indiana, and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Tau Alpha Journalism Society, Alpha Kappa Mu Mu. Gina is listed among who's who among American women and young entrepreneurs. Gina, welcome forward to the Gina Town Show and Fat Meat Fridays.
Right, thank you, sir.
And Pastor Raymond Dix, who has never shied away from tough issues, believing fervently that God's word answers all things. Pastor Dix is in the preaching ministry and is now serving in Fort Wayne, Indiana, as senior pastor of Pilgrim Baptist Church. Pastor, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much, sir. That's never.
I think he was getting ready to say that he has never shied away from preaching.
Y'all hear? Okay, yeah.
You got a little delayed there, as that evil that you talked about earlier is trying to stop you from doing. But before we came forward, Reverend Dix, we were talking about the tone and tonality of where we are and how we need to move forward, and how we need to look. What does it really look like for us in this particular place that we find ourselves in the nation? What do you think?
Well, I think that when we talk about the tone, as you being a person that is certainly well trained in music and musical muse yourself, I think that tone is very important because it sets the stage for people being able to listen without distraction. if something's in the right tone, then you have an opportunity to hear really what the musician or the singer is saying. If it's in the wrong tone or the wrong key, then it distracts one from the power of what that song could do. And so I think when we look at how we set the tone in our community, we must set a tone that speaks to something like, take Black History Month, for example. We are in the midst of Black History Month, about the midway point. And almost every year we talk about the great contributions that Black people made to this nation. And we should talk about that. Let me make that clear. But those aren't the only contributions we made. We made some internal contributions over the years that often get left out. Our forefathers actually stayed together and stayed married. They invested in the training of their children. My grandfather had a very limited education in Mississippi, but insisted that his children would not miss school because they saw very clearly that education could be one of the ways that broke the cycle of systemic poverty. So I think when we look at those kinds of things, that kind of tone is what we need. Let's talk about our achievements and contributions to America, but let's also talk about the contributions that we made, our forefathers made in our community, and in some places are still being made. That's what I think it has to happen with how we set that tone so people can actually hear the truth of the message.
What does it look like?
So I think it looks like a shifting of focus from not only external, but to a both and. That we look at what's going on externally in our community, and certainly we should stand for injustice. As Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But also we need to think about and look at how can we improve the block we live on? What can we do in that one block? If I say I'm going to improve everything for Black people in America, that is a daunting and difficult task. But it's not so hard to make my block better, to make my block more loving, to meet my neighbors, to talk to them about the importance of education, to bless a single mother, to be able to say to her, hey, you may not have planned to be in this situation, but like Hannah in the Bible, you have an opportunity now to see your children blessed and great. And that's what we want to do. Work on the local level and make a difference there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. During this hour, our very special guest has been none other than Dr. Raymond Dix. Pastor, we have about 2.5 minutes before we come forward and the end of our show and the end of our week. Can you offer us a word of hope?
Yes, I think that wherever we look as believers, in spite of the hope that does not, we have a hope that wrong, because our hope is not in Washington, D.C. Our hope is not in the American experiment. Our hope is in the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And I think as we stand in that today and believe that, we will see the power of God begin to move. What is it going to take for us to turn back to God? Certainly, where we are right now with the things that are going on in our society, we should be thinking, maybe God's trying to say, come back to me. And I believe that is where our hope lies.
If you're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, you're listening to us from LAX to Orange County to San Bernardino, or you're listening to us on the 405, the 101, the 10, the 5, the 110, and the 118. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's been Fat Meat Fridays. Our very special guest has been Pastor Raymond Dix, the pastor of Pilgrim Baptist Church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Gina, a closing thought?
Closing thought is I hope that everyone who is in the sound of our voice, or if you go back and listen to the show, that you will take the weekend to be in a full reflective mode. And that's what we try to do on Reflectivity, is give us something to think about, an opportunity to make ourselves better over the weekend, both mind, body, and add to that. So
we'll see you guys on Monday. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward right here on KBLA.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News.